when you conduct QCA, you're interpreting two figures. Okay, you're interpreting a coverage, a figure for coverage and a figure for consistency. And both of these are numbers that go from 0 to 1. Okay, so 0.7, 0.2, 0.95. Okay, and coverage, the coverage figure tells you how much of your outcome is explained or covered by the combination of conditions. Okay, so this can be large. It can be very large, your coverage, but it can also be small if you have lots of paths to the same outcome. And this is somewhat analogous to effect size in inferential statistics. So here, coverage gauges the empirical relevance of a combination of the factors. Okay, so think of it somewhat like effect size. Okay, and then you also interpret a figure for consistency, also on a 0 to 1 scale. So. Consistency refers to the proportion of cases with a combination of conditions that are subsets of a given outcome. So in QCA, it's conventional to use 0.75 as your cutoff for high consistency, but just like we know from our statistical learning, these cutoffs are somewhat arbitrary. So and that requires some professional judgment on the part of the researcher to decide what you think is a sufficient cutoff, just like we do in statistics. Okay. But 0.75 tends to be the conventional cutoff to say, yes, this combination of conditions was highly consistent. Okay? And this can be analogized to statistical significance, okay? Because it tells whether an empirical connection exists between a subset of conditions and a given outcome. So we're going to talk today about the coverage and the consistency that we found in the conditions, the combinations of conditions that were associated with TFAers becoming policy entrepreneurs. Now, when you use QCA, and you all can Google it, and you can see you can download free QCA software. It now comes in multiple forms. It's quite easy to use, actually. So you can sort of play around in the sandbox with a very small data set if you even just want to create a sample one. But Charles Reagan has a great website that you can go to that'll sort of give you that will give you links to the actual software, and you'll see the steps that you go through to arrive at this truth table. But after we define our cases, define what conditions we want to see are associated, or we define our cases and we define our outcome, and we select the conditions that we think are necessary or sufficient for being associated with this outcome, we then get a truth table. And this is a very modified version of the truth table to only show you a couple of the combinations of conditions that were most associated with becoming a policy entrepreneur. So here are a couple of results from our QCA analysis. And what we see is 4 conditions in this first set of conditions. We see 4 conditions that are highly consistent with leading to policy entrepreneurship. We see the race of the participant, their socioeconomic background, the level of involvement with TFA after they complete the program, and then their enrollment in traditional graduate school. We see a second set of conditions, and I'll define the values, whether we're talking about low SES or high SES, for example, in a moment. We also see another set of conditions that was very associated with policy entrepreneurship, and here race pops up again. Their perceptions of how positive their experience come up in this one. The number of years they spent teaching in combination with their level of involvement in the program. What we see that what is in both of these cases, if we look over here at consistency, these were highly consistent, right? So that means these were very frequently associated with policy entrepreneurship. Okay, 0.9 is very high, and 0.86 is also quite high. Coverage around 0.4, that's a moderate level of coverage. And here it's a fairly low level of coverage, 0.24, but it's because we actually in the end had 8 combinations of conditions that were associated with becoming a policy entrepreneur. And when you have that many combinations come up, then coverage goes down. These values go down.